I'm attorney Phil Jusino, and this is Finding Common Ground here on Altice Channel 115, coming at you from the Lake Grove studios. I got a special guest. I'm not even going to call him a guest. I'm going to call him a co-host for this evening, Frank Vetro. He and I go way back to our FM days, podcast, you name it. Frank, welcome aboard.
Thanks for having me, Phil. It's a pleasure to see you, buddy.
The first segment we were going to do, or we are going to do it, is about qualified immunity. But before that, I learned something today. I didn't know this. I don't know, maybe Frank knew this, but I didn't realize that the black community is not diverse.
Oh, God.
And that the Hispanic community is diverse. You know how I know that? Joe Biden said it. He actually said that the black community is not diverse like the Hispanic community. Frank, what do you think about that?
The amount of gaffes this guy has had, just when you think he's done, well, I don't think he's done anymore. I really think there's something, and I'm not trying to pick on him, or not in a mean way. He must have something like really.
I really do. A cousin, got a little angry with me because he thought I was making fun of the man. I'm pointing things out, and he's running for president. He's putting himself out there. If he was some guy in a nursing home, do you think I'm going to tease him? And it's not even teasing. I'm pointing things out. Just like they point things out about President Trump, I'm pointing things out about Joe Biden.
I don't think he can make it through a debate.
It's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
Well, for him, the bar is low. You know what I mean? Right. So if he puts two sentences together, his people are going to be jumping up and down.
Right.
They're going to be so happy. But what's interesting is, remember he recently said, which turned off Leo Tyrell, who used to be, and I guess he's still a liberal man, but Leo Tyrell said what really turned him off to Joe Biden was when Biden said, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black.
Right.
Now, maybe he was being flip about it. I don't know, but that wasn't a wise thing to say.
I remember that. I don't think he was.
And then when he said that the black community is not diverse like the Hispanic community, what are you, out of your mind? The black community is very diverse. You have blacks from Africa, you have blacks from Haiti, you have blacks from all over the place. You have upper middle class, lower class, you have all kinds. Just like, it'd be like saying all Italians are the same.
Right.
No.
It's.
So for him to say that, and again, I think it goes beyond gaffes. In fact, I said it one time, I said he's a gaffe machine, and someone said it's beyond gaffes. Maybe in his early career he was a gaffe machine. Now there's something going on where he either loses his focus, he says things that you look at it and I don't see that guy talking for long periods of time like Trump can get up there and speak for 5 hours.
He fumbles his words. He doesn't articulate them when he's trying to speak. I mean, listen, I fumble my words. Sometimes I don't articulate right. This guy for 40-something years has been a politician. I mean, he
47, 48?
He should be polished. And he sounds like he has, again, I'm not trying to pick on the guy. And obviously I'm not a doctor, but he sounds like he has some kind of degenerative disease.
He could.
The way his words are coming out.
What's interesting is when he speaks lately, we joke around, he's been in the basement, it's a controlled setting. This is not like Trump will go out there and you see in the press corps, they're asking him, they're trying to destroy this guy. And he stands there and he takes it, right? It'd almost be like, remember the Little Rascals, where I think it was Spanky or whatever goes out and he's giving a speech, and then all of a sudden people are shooting spitballs at him, and he's got the shield. Yes. That's what it's like, and he takes it for hours sometimes.
Yeah.
Biden, if he's asked questions that he's not prepared to answer, that I really want to see.
I think Trump will derail him in a minute.
Right. The Democrats' only hope is that, again, I said this, the bar is so low that if he comes out there and he can string a couple of sentences together and make some sense, they're going to feel like they've accomplished something.
Yeah.
But I think if you look at, in fact, we'll get to it a little later, the approval rating, I think the tide is turning, and I'll make my case in a little while.
Okay.
So let's go back to qualified immunity is a legal doctrine. You're not going to find it in the United States Constitution. You're not going to find it in the statute. In '67, the United States Constitution came up with this legal doctrine. It's a legal principle that protects politicians and the police. We're going to focus in on the police. And it's a two-part test, very simply. It's, did the officer violate a constitutional right? And did he know that he violated a constitutional right? I'll give you the clearest example. George Floyd, All right, we all know about that. I think I'm not going out on a limb by saying the cop murdered him. You know, kneeling on someone's neck for 8 minutes, you're violating a constitutional right, aside from committing murder. Right? And then did the officer know that the act violated a clearly established right? And then was it obviously unlawful? It protects the police. It's a police-friendly doctrine. Right? So that's the principle. Again, it's not in the Constitution, it's not in the statute, but it protects the police and politicians, Frank. You know, so a politician does something, they have immunity. It's called qualified immunity. The Democrats are trying to chip away and get away with that. What's your take on qualified immunity, Frank?
From what I've researched with the qualified immunity cases, lawsuits, it's mostly excessive force cases.
Often, correct.
Yeah, a lot of excessive force cases. Now, with regard to that, I do think that, again, generally, for the most part, there's always exceptions, okay? But there is a need for qualified immunity. You know, say there's a riot at the Smith Haven Mall down the road.
Right.
If anybody even still goes to the mall. And, you know, there's 100 people fighting, the cops in the middle of it, he's trying to break it up, they're coming at him with weapons, and he tases somebody and he tases the wrong person in the middle of that melee. Like, why an innocent person would be in the middle of that, who knows, but I do think they should have immunity for that. There's a situation where it's a split-second decision, their life is on the line, there's people coming at them, hitting them, shooting, and he tases somebody.
You want him to react.
And he tases somebody. Happen to be an innocent bystander in the middle of all that, I don't think that he should be liable for lawsuit for that. I think that there'd be much more to grip on if it wasn't excessive force, where police for months or years even, do things outside their scope in wrongful conviction cases.
Or planting evidence.
Planting evidence. A lot of that.
Withholding evidence.
Withholding evidence. And I don't want to tip our hat to anybody. I think Heater did a lot of things that were outside his scope, and he should be liable for. It wasn't, when it's not split, like you said, withholding evidence, that's not split second. That happened, you decide not to do that, the next day you decide to keep not doing it, and the next day, that isn't split second. So I think qualified immunity for split second decisions, I think that the police should have some type of protection, for sure. Or else, what are they supposed to do?
Right. They just sit there like they're kind of doing now with their hands in the pocket because they're afraid to react.
Somebody's holding up the bank. What should I do in this case? Would I be immune to, you can't do that.
See, imagine Dirty Harry or somebody like that without qualified immunity.
Jesus.
Now, with qualified immunity, and it's funny you talked about the mall situation or a shooting. There were two examples in my research. One was a guy shot at a bad guy and the bullet hit somebody else. It was determined that he had qualified immunity. There was another one where a car speeding away, the cop just shot at the car. And I guess it was a ricochet or hit somebody else. They determined he didn't have qualified immunity. But it's a high bar. If you're a plaintiff, Frank, it's a high bar when you're suing a cop, let's say. It's a high bar to get over. And they said also judges can almost always find a way to make it qualified in some way. You know what I mean? That, oh, he's protected. You want him to do this. You want him to do that. In a split second, I think that cop should get more qualified immunity than, again, where a cop intentionally does something where he has time to think about it.
Right.
All right, or I'm not going to turn over this tape. Or I remember, I don't know if it wasn't a Dirty Harry movie. It was another one, I think with a Charles Bronson, where he planted evidence. And then before his partner had to perjure himself, he was honest about it. But you plant evidence, that's bad.
That's bad.
Obviously, you're going to send somebody. Now, maybe the best intentions, the expression, some of the worst things people do with the best intentions.
Right.
You figure, I got that murderer. I got to make the case stronger. But you don't do that. And you had time to think about it, and it wasn't like someone shooting at your head. So there, qualified immunity should not apply. Or a politician that's taking a bribe, right? Why would you protect a politician that, let's say, is doing something like taking a bribe?
Right.
As opposed to maybe misstating something. So qualified immunity, I think, is necessary, But again, you have to have common sense when a judge looks at it. Like you said, is it something that the cop, did he willfully violate an order? Did he know it? George Floyd, that's an easy one.
Right.
You know, I'll give you a harder one. The shooting at Wendy's, where the guy turned around, tried to tase the cop, and the cop shot him. There, when a taser, which is deemed in Georgia a dangerous instrument, a deadly weapon, it really is. That's because people have died getting hit with a taser. There, that cop, I think, should have qualified immunity because he was chasing him, and the guy turned around with a taser. Now, if he was chasing a guy that had nothing and he shoots at him, that might be a different story.
I think I agree from another angle with that. That's something that was, even though it was going on for a little while, okay, it wasn't just boom, boom, and it's over. At that point, cops chasing him, tasing, all that stuff. Now he's got his adrenaline flowing. And when your adrenaline is flowing, you know, and when anybody's adrenaline is flowing, that's not the time to give them a geometry problem to solve. They're not thinking, like, I don't say they're not thinking. You want a cop to always be thinking, but that's not when you're at your best as a thinker. Anybody in the world, right? Once your adrenaline is so pumped up and fired up, that they should. Again, that's not the same as him doing that, fighting for what he may have considered life or death, is not the same as days, weeks,
no, not at all.
Sometimes years.
And in the Wendy's, everything was fine initially. That's the sad part, right? They were talking, they were all gentlemen. The guy who was ultimately killed, until they wanted to cuff him, and he manhandled those two cops. You saw the video.
Yes.
He manhandled them.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, you're running a dark parking lot. He turns around, he tries to tase you. Now, what if he did tase him, and then he comes back, takes a gun, shoots you in the head? Wouldn't be the first time something like that happened.
That's right.
So their qualified immunity, I think, would stay. George Floyd, no way.
No.
Or the case where you said where a cop plants evidence or does something to evidence to make it impossible for a guy to get a fair trial. I think we can agree with that.
Of course.
But it's a tough call. I don't think they should get rid of it because you don't want a cop to be so fearful that he will not act, which is happening in the city because de Blasio doesn't have their backs.
Never did.
I saw, when I had Ed on the show, I was talking about, it was two situations, a black guy and a white guy. First, the black guy is spray painting the courthouse, downtown Manhattan. Those are beautiful courthouses. He's actually spray painting it, and I'm like, where are the cops? The camera pans to the right. There's 5 cops on the corner. He walks away. He knew they weren't going to do anything to him. Another one is a white guy defacing the Black Lives Matter mural, right? He's pouring paint on it, and he runs away. Nobody bats an eye. So these cops are afraid, because think about it. If you're an honest cop, and you have to make an arrest, and the guy starts to fight with you, and God forbid you have to shoot him, your life could be over, even if you're in the right. Remember that guy, was it Missouri, or St. Louis, where, you know, hands up and don't shoot?
Oh, yeah.
That cop was cleared. But guess what? He'll never be a cop again.
No.
And his life, you know, as he knew it, is over. He probably had to move out of the area. So if you're a cop, you're like, you know, and unlike an attorney, we have a little time to think, to process. A cop, like a soldier. The same with a soldier. Think about it. Oh, you shot the wrong, I didn't do it on purpose. You know, people are shooting at my head, the adrenaline's going, you're holding a dangerous weapon, and God forbid you hit, you know, friendly fire. Remember that football player, Pat Tillman?
Yes.
He was killed by friendly fire. Those guys, the guy who shot it didn't mean it, right? He probably, if he knows who it was, if, you know, the guy knew it was him, God, he's got to take that to the grave. But things happen, they need certain protections.
Now, you work for the DA's office. The DA and judges have even more protection, don't they?
Yeah, it's a very high burden to sue a prosecutor, a DA like that, and a judge. Extremely, extremely tough. It's almost like you have to prove that they willfully did something, and it's hard to do. You know, it's not, mere negligence doesn't apply.
Right.
You know, like in a car accident, you say, oh, the guy was reckless or whatever. Much, much, much higher burden. It's almost like you got to prove criminal activity in order to get that. So let's get to another topic. I was heartened by something I read the other day. Now, Rasmussen is a responsible poll. He's good, Scott Rasmussen. And he had a poll that said, I think a week ago, it's a tracking poll, likely voters, Frank, and that's always important because a lot of people don't vote. So a poll of likely voters said the job approval, they approved of the job that President Trump is doing, 51%. That's pretty good. Right? Obviously, I'd like to see it at 90, but 51%. I think 40 said strongly. I think 40 said not strongly. But the fact that he's over 50%, that's a good sign. I think the tide is changing, and we were talking about it before the show. Once the debates happen, now, if I'm a Democrat handler, I don't want those debates to happen. I'd say he got the flu today. He's got the cold, remember that? Oh, the whole store's got the flu.
Right.
Remember my cousin Vinny? Say he's got the flu, he's sick, I don't know. I'd do everything I could to keep that man away from, and just run out the clock. It's like you got a lead in a football game, and you say, run around. Or, hand the ball to a guy that's never gonna fumble.
Right.
Do not pass, do not do a pitch, nothing fancy. That's how they should play it, but he promised he's gonna do 3 debates. Let's see what happens.
Unfortunately, none before the mail-ins.
Well, that's just it. A lot of people are going to have cast their ballot
Right.
before the debates. But what do you think about Trump's chances?
I said it for the longest time. Well, I said it from the beginning. He's going to win. I think I like his chances of winning. Same old thing. It's not as bad, but, well, it could be where same situation. Nobody outwardly comes out and says in
He
public
doesn't poll well. We know that.
I'm going to vote for Trump. Nobody says that. It's almost like it's a secret society. You look at somebody the right way, and they look back. You're like, all right. You feel somebody out before you even start talking politics. I think, and honestly, I should probably be an independent. I'm a Republican. Definitely not a liberal. I think there's no good. I think the swamp means both sides. Drain the swamp. I think.
Oh, I do. I agree.
It means it's both sides. So I don't want Democrats to think I'm picking on them. I'm not. I think it's both sides. And I think he's doing a decent job. I think, God forbid, people got out of his way. I never seen it. I mean, the media never really gave conservatives a fair shake, but he really, oh my God, what they do to this man.
I know. Worse than Reagan, worse than with Bush.
Unbelievable.
No question.
Yeah.
They just went after Bush and said he's dumb. Or he was a drunk or something like that.
Yeah.
They didn't go after him. This guy was impeached. And then you had the Steele dossier and all, Comey, all this nonsense to try to derail the man.
Even before he was...
How distracting is that?
Even before he won the election, as he's trying to win, what they were saying, and all this stuff coming out.
They were saying stuff before he was even sworn in. We're going to impeach him. Imagine you trying to teach a class, and there's a couple of guys in the background yelling, Frank's a terrible teacher, he's a bad guy. Yeah. How do you focus?
We're going to get him fired.
How do you focus?
You can't.
But yet he does. He gets up every day basically saying, screw you, I'm going to do what I have to do. I'm going to forge ahead. He's consistent. He's looking out for the American people. Yeah. Everything he does is to look out for, whether it be the coal miner. Remember Hillary said, going to put the coal miners out of business? Not too bright.
Right.
But Trump, everything he does is geared at helping the American worker, the American business.
Our whole life, you grow up and you've heard it, I've heard it. Like people say, oh, the real people that run the United States, you don't even know who they are, and it's behind the scenes, and it's not the president. The president doesn't run the United States; it's the other people. And so here we have this outsider, Trump.
Can't get any more outside.
And those other people, those other people aren't running things as smooth as they want to because Trump doesn't care. He is an outsider.
Even the Republican establishment didn't want him.
Right, exactly. And so now we're seeing what happens when the people that run the country that nobody ever knew about, not the president, can't do it. You see what happens when you try to infiltrate and take them down. What is going to happen? They're not going to let you do it, and they're all attacking him. Right. He's proven what we've been saying and what we heard our whole lives. Oh, the president doesn't really run the United States. It's these other people. Well, Trump's proven that.
Right. And it's amazing to me how much he got accomplished before the pandemic hit. Think about it. They could criticize him, but the economy was humming along. Unemployment was record lows. We were energy independent. We hadn't been those things for years. And I don't want to hear it was Obama's. It was Obama's until things started going bad because of the pandemic. It's Trump's fault. Right? I got to look, and I'm a smart guy. I majored in business. I'm an attorney. If I thought for 1 second Trump was not doing a good job, do you think I would support him? Hell no.
No.
Would you? No,
No.
we would not support him. And yeah, does he tweet too much? Maybe. I don't care. Tweet all you want. If you're going to help the country, feelings, I'm less concerned about people's feelings. I'd rather see the black community, the Hispanic community, white community have jobs than their feelings hurt because he tweeted something silly.
Well, it's funny you say that because when I speak to people now, when I talk about this politics with people, I always do this now because they'll throw out all these things and it's a lot of hate and their feelings about Trump. And I come back with, listen, you're giving me your feelings about what he did or what he says and how you feel about him, but just remember feelings aren't facts.
Right.
Okay, because how you feel about something, somebody can feel a different way about it. Like I feel a different way about some of the things they say about Trump that bothers them, but it doesn't bother me. Feelings aren't facts. Trump is like he's like a Dennis Rodman. Whoa, you dirty! I can't play it, but when he's on your team, boy, you love him.
win. Well, look at Belichick. People say he's a jerk, right? He wins. If you're in New England, you don't care if that guy is not a friendly guy.
Right.
He's not warm and fuzzy.
Right.
He wins.
Well, yeah. Let's pretend. I'm not saying it's true. Let's pretend it's true that Trump's a womanizer and he's so inappropriate. I'm not going to bed with him. That's for his wife to deal with.
Right.
That's not for me.
I didn't vote for Father of the Year.
Right.
Let's
I
be
want to know
honest.
how he's going to run the United States. That's it. I mean, how do you know how the local the card store you buy your birthday cards from? What kind of
Would
owner
you
is he?
care?
What does he do at home? I don't know. Did he beat his wife? I can't get it. I don't know. You know what I mean? You can't go by that. Does he do a good job running that store? Is he doing a good job running the country? You can't put your feelings. You got to
And
compartmentalize.
what I don't like, I have Sirius Radio, and I was listening to Fox while I was driving to work, and there was somebody, and they keep using the word, he's a racist. Where are they getting that from? Look what he did was for the good of the country, right? Unemployment wasn't just whites low; it was low for blacks. Prison reform, he pardoned he pardoned that woman that was in jail for Obama didn't pardon her. She was in jail for like a ridiculous amount of time for getting involved in drugs.
Right.
She was a desperate woman. I'm not condoning it, but come on. They're rapists. They get less time than this woman got.
Right.
Murderers that got less time. He let her out. Kim Kardashian. That was the one that Kim Kardashian was pushing for. I don't see him as and he in the city. You see pictures with him in Sharpton and him in the. But when he became a president, our president, that's all of a sudden a switch went off and he became Mr. Racist.
Right.
And they talk about his dad had some clause in contracts. That wasn't good. Was that Donald Trump? And unfortunately, years ago, it's like saying George Washington is a bad guy because he owned slaves. Is it wrong to own slaves? Yes. You judge a man at the time he lived. He's the father of our country. If it wasn't for Jefferson and Washington, you wouldn't have America. Not like this.
Right.
You wouldn't. And the document they came up with lasted all these years. Is it bad they had slaves? Yes. Okay, we got that out there, right? But, they Columbus and all that, you judge a man in the times of was. Imagine 100 years from now judging Schumer. Imagine 100 years from now judging Pelosi, right? I hope they don't have any statues because my grandkids will take those down.
I have a question for you with regard to the racism. So, what's back in '92? What's his name? L.A. The L.A. riots.
Rodney King.
Rodney King, right? Was that '92? Something like that. Rodney King, and they're talking about racism and all this other stuff and being treated unfairly. Before that, I mean, the '60s and throughout time. And then, Freddie Gray, 5 years ago,
Baltimore,
whatever it was. And then every now and then there's something else. Now this is the latest. Now this is the thing. And it's racism and it's blacks, lives matter. It's not fair. This is nothing new. So now the media brings it all to the forefront again. Like, why now? You knew it always existed. Politicians, Biden, whoever's been in office, not Trump, whoever's been in office, where have you been? You were around in the 60s. You're around for all the other incidents that have gone wrong. Why now?
Obama was 8 years.
Yeah, exactly.
2 terms.
That's right. But the question for the blacks to ask is, what has these people been doing? why would I vote for Biden? He's been around for all of these incidents, and we're still where we are today.
Right, and you're going to blame President Trump for
Right.
Chicago, for St. Louis, for Baltimore. Remember Baltimore? I like to say this because I put things in perspective. In Baltimore, when Freddie Gray was killed, you had a black mayor, you had a black district attorney, you had a black police chief. The congressperson was black. Every leader in that community was black. So how can you cry racism when the police were the ones that caused the death? And I'm not saying they did anything wrong, but whatever the case might be. But if you had a black mayor and a black police chief, why didn't they do something about racism? Why didn't they vet their police officers better and say, you're racist, you're gone?
Exactly.
What, they had the power, the mayor and the police chief. It's not like you had a white police chief and a white mayor and they're all racist and, you know, like the Bull Connor days, you know, going back 50s and 60s, like Leo Tyrell says.
Right.
There's no, and this is a civil rights attorney saying he doesn't see systematic racism in the police department. Are there racists within the police department? Yes. Are there black racists? Absolutely. Are there white racists? You name it, they're a racist. Is it systematic? I don't think a cop gets up in the morning and says, I want to kill a black guy. I don't think so. Maybe I can't answer for the guy who killed George Floyd. I don't know what the heck that guy was thinking. I don't know what he was thinking. I was talking to someone whose father was a police officer, and he said what they would do is a guy like that, they try to get that guy up and in the cop car and get him the heck out of that as soon as possible, because you never know what the crowd's going to do.
Right.
But he knelt on his. What I didn't like is one of the other cops, a young guy, I think a rookie. It's like the first week. He was saying, you know, get up. They charged him. What do you train? And this is my question. What do you train a young cop to do if a senior cop you feel is breaking the law? What if that cop who's been there a week, Frank, is he supposed to grab that other cop? Because if that's what you want, then you better train that cop right. You better say, you know what, guys, look at that guy who's kneeling on George Floyd's. We want you to rip him off him and put him in a hold and put him on the ground. Because if not, you cannot charge that cop then. You have to train them forever, just like a soldier. What do you do if you see a little kid, whatever? Like, remember the movie American Sniper? I think that's what the movie was called, about Chris.
Yeah.
Right? When a young kid was holding like a grenade launcher.
Oh, right.
What are you trained to do? You can't send somebody out there in the field without them knowing what to do in basically every situation. Because what do? Do you shoot the kid that's about to take a grenade launcher and blow up a caravan? I would say, yeah. If it looks like that's what he's going to do.
Right.
What do you do? Remember that was one with I think it was a different one. In the beginning of the movie, you had the nun or something like that. You know, what do? You know, it's easy for us to second guess when you. It's like saying the ref blew the call, yet it happens in lightning speed, and we're watching it 10 times, and you and I still disagree.
There's the
he was out of bounds. He wasn't out of bounds.
There's the qualified immunity argument right there.
Right. Do you tell a soldier, if you think 5 soldiers are going to get killed by a 10-year-old holding a rocket launcher aimed at them? You know, remember the guy got shot.
I remember.
What do? Look, I'm not a soldier. I went through boot camp Marine Corps. But what do they train, just like with a cop? What do they train the cop to do? If you see a cop abusing his authority, what are we supposed to do? And if you don't train him that way, then you can't blame the cop.
Right.
Because he said, get off him. Something along those lines. Get off him. Now, there was another guy standing there doing nothing. That guy was complicit. You know? And also, what would you do, Frank, if you were there? Let's just say you're not a cop. You're standing there watching this. You can't grab that cop, and they'd shoot you.
It's a tricky situation.
If you were to say, get off Floyd's neck, you'd get shot. Guarantee it. Or they would have put you in a headlock and you'd have no teeth. Right? They would do. But as a human being, I'm like, get off him. There were people like, get off him. You're killing him.
Yeah.
1 minute is too long on someone's neck like that.
Yeah. Hands in his pocket, right?
Yeah. And did you ever tase the friggin' guy? Tase him. Tase him 3 times if you had to, so he wouldn't move. Then get him in the car and get him out of there.
Right.
You know, unbelievable. But again, it goes back to qualified immunity. What is a cop supposed to do? Imagine, so you get up in the morning, you're a proud cop, you're there a week, all of a sudden you go out with this murderer who kneels on a guy's neck, and you're charged with murder or something very serious. Imagine that.
Oh, man.
You're like, What the heck did I do wrong?
Right.
I'm listening to my Sarge or whatever rank that other, because the other guy was more seasoned, obviously.
Right.
What do you do? It's a tough call. I wouldn't want, look, being a cop is a tough job. And there are good cops and there are bad cops. And that's not an excuse. You know, to be a bad cop, you're under stress. We're all under stress at some point. And they're under immense stress. I'm not even equating a prosecutor. When I was a DA, we had stress, but it wasn't like boom, boom, boom. You know, we had to make a split second. Sometimes on trial, you make a split second decision, but what I was doing was not going to cause somebody's death.
Right.
You know, it could be reviewed by an appellate court. You pull that trigger and that bullet leaves the chamber, that's it. You better hope it hits the right target, and you better hope you had a reason to fire it.
Right.
Now, what I wanted to talk about, we were talking about Joe Biden before. You heard the three lies involving his arrests. He said, remember he said he was in Soweto, and he was there to see, drawing a blank on his name? Nelson Mandela.
Nelson Mandela.
And he got arrested, and then he backtracked.
Right.
And then he said he was with some girls walking into a dormitory to see a football game, and he got arrested. Then another time, he said he was young kid, and he snuck in to like the Senate chamber, and he sat down in the presiding senator's chair, and he got arrested. And he said it multiple times. He didn't just say it one time. So, and then he talks about corn pop and you know, the chain and the knife. Yeah. What is he trying to portray? That he's a tough guy? That why would you say? First of all, it's a lie. It's not like he was arrested and he's playing it up. That's telling the truth. 3 times he said repeatedly he was arrested, and then he said, "Well, I was told I couldn't move." Now that's different than being arrested.
That's different.
Right? So why does he? And then they talk about Trump lying. These are facts. What I'm saying is not an opinion, because he said, I didn't mean I was arrested, or I really wasn't arrested. Oh, he also lied about his credentials. He said he was like top of his class, and he did all these things, and then they went back, and this was a video, and they showed him. He's saying all these things, like, you know, what are you talking about? I'm top of my class, and all these things. It'd be like me saying, yeah, I was in the major leagues. Frank, you know that? I played for the Yankees. And I didn't. And I'm saying these things. Doesn't he realize that at some point they're going to check you out? Yeah. You know, it's like the false honor, where someone says, I was a soldier, you know, and they put the uniform on, and then a soldier's like, you bought that at the Army Navy store. You know, you got like an Army insignia with a Marine Corps this and a Navy that. Come on. You know, and that guy really has nothing to lose because he's probably a loser. But Trump, you're a senator, and you're saying all these things. That's why his handlers must be like, I wish they probably want like something that can shock him. So if he starts going down that path, zap. Yeah, Biden. I might have said Trump, but Biden. I'm talking about Biden.
Same thing with Warren. All the lies she told.
Yeah, yeah. Well, isn't she? Yeah, she's a woman of color, and she had an entry in Pow Wow Chow. Seriously, Pow Wow Chow was like a recipe for Indian Native American recipes, and she was in there. Fordham University. Like, all truth, I went to Fordham. Somebody from Fordham wrote an article that they were proud of her because she was a woman of color. Are you kidding me? A woman of color?
It's unbelievable. Based
on what? I'm not saying you have to look black to be considered a woman of color, but she didn't have anything that a woman of color. And you know what? I have high cheekbones. At least, like, if you did a DNA test, I'm 15% African. I'm 11% Native American. I'm 25% Italian, 50% French. At least I don't go around saying I'm a person of color, but at least I could say I'm 15% something.
Right.
That's a factual statement. Doesn't mean I grew up in the culture. I didn't, obviously. But that's why I was joking. I think I did a post one time. I said, he says he's going to pick a black female. She's still in the running because she's a woman of color. Right? What is a, you know, and just to throw that out there, what does that mean? You know, if you grew up, let's say, a rich black person, are you considered the person? You could be, but what does it mean? Did you experience prejudice growing up? What did you? And then you could have a white kid growing up in some of the communities we know about, and they're dirt poor, and the cop pulls them over because they think they're drug dealers. I have clients, I represent clients, and they're always being pulled over. They don't have white privilege.
Right.
Some people do, and some people have black privilege. Obama's kids, what kind of privilege do they have? Oh. Their father was president. Look at, what's her name? This is not anything with color, but look at the job that Chelsea Clinton landed. Because her father was president. I was saying her mother's president. Her father was president, and the mother was a powerful woman, and she got a job making hundreds of thousands of dollars working for cable news. No way. We're better than the show she put on.
Although racism exists, I always said it's more a money thing.
Yeah, socioeconomic. That's what I said.
It's more that than anything else, because the wealthy people, is Michael Jordan discriminated against? I mean, there might be somebody out there that's still gonna,
Sure.
Treat them unfairly if they could. I don't know how you're gonna be able to do that, but if they could not let you in a private, I don't know how the laws of how it works, but for the most part, his kids, him, and his descendants way after them are going to be treated just fine. It's more a money thing.
But I think like if you're a cop and I won't give a name of a town, I don't want to embarrass anybody, but we know where they are. And let's say there's a kid driving around in a real beat up car and he comes down a street that's like a known corner. He's more likely to be pulled over than, let's say, going to Beverly Hills, a black guy with a nice car. Right? Could you have a racist cop pulls him over? It could be. But usually it's how you present yourself.
Correct.
How you speak. Like remember Biden said of Obama, he's clean and articulate.
Yeah, never seen before.
I'm surprised he's a black man that's clean. That was like a ridiculous thing to say.
Crazy.
And he said something about he didn't want his kids to grow up in the jungle. You talk about maybe being a racist or having funny ideas like that, Joe Biden. He comes up with things, you ain't black if you don't vote for me. Oh, wait, so if you're a black guy, you have to vote Democrat, no matter what.
Yeah.
It'd be like me saying, if I ran for office, oh, if you're Italian, you got to vote for me. No, you don't. Not because I want you to vote for me, not because you're Italian.
Right.
And if you didn't vote for me, would that make you any less Italian or whatever? No, of course not. It's kind of a dumb thing to say. Just like blacks are not diverse. That might not be a racist statement, but that's an ignorant statement.
It's one thing after another.
And he said it now. It's not even like 20 years ago he said something. It's bad enough. But we've done radio. We got a lot of stuff out there, and I bet you if they parsed the things, we wouldn't look as ridiculous as Biden does.
No way.
For things he said last week.
No way.
Anything I ever said, I stand behind. If I got something factually inaccurate, that's a different story.
Right.
But I stand behind. Like when I say about there's a mentality of like a plantation mentality with the blacks. That's a perfect example. You have to vote Democrat, otherwise you're off the plantation. You've committed a mortal sin if you're a Democrat and you vote, if you're a black Democrat and you vote for Republican. You can't do that. But we know that there are plenty of them out there. Mm-hmm. And now Leo Tyrell turning around, that's the tip of the iceberg. That's the tip of the iceberg, Frank. It goes much, much deeper than that.
Yeah.
With blacks. And I suspect and I predict that President Trump, although I'm not saying he's going to win the black vote. The percentage of black votes will in all likelihood go to Joe Biden. But he's going to win a bigger percentage than he did in 2016, and that could be enough to win the election with the independent votes he's going to get.
Yeah.
So that's going to be interesting. What I wanted to jump quickly, because I want to get Ed Vilbig on in a little while, but I wanted to jump. Now you heard all the brouhaha about mail-in voting, and there's mail-in voting, and then there's also the voting of absentee ballots. Two different things. I went to Florida, I played in a baseball tournament. I voted absentee. I had to request that ballot, Frank. It wasn't just sent to me. And the safeguards, you sign, you have to seal it, the envelope. About a month ago, there was a school board vote. My father-in-law, who has never lived with me, he stayed with me for periods of time, right? He's not watching the show, so I could say longer than maybe I wanted him to stay. No, he's a good guy. 90 years old, he's still kicking. He's going to outlive us all, I think. But he never lived with me. Yet, he got a ballot to vote for the school board, Frank. So that means I could have just said, you know what? I want Joe Jones on the school board to win. So I'm going to take my father's ballot, and some of those could be close because you don't have like 1 million votes, right? The school board vote. And I could have said, he votes for bum, bum, bum. Sign his name. They don't know what his signature looks like. And I could send it in, and guess what? I just voted twice. Maybe not under my name, but somebody else's. Think about all the people that moved. Think about the dead people that are going to get ballots. So if I'm a Democrat and I get a ballot sent to my house in the name of the guy who lived in the house before me, what's to stop me from writing his name or signing his name, sending it in? Do you think they're going to be that careful about it?
No.
I get mail from people. When I first bought my house, I had someone staying with me. You know, I was a doctor, was a tenant for a very short period of time early on. And I still get mail. I don't even know if Danny was born when that guy was living there. You know, and Danny's 43. No, I'm kidding. Danny's, 23 years old. I get his mail.
How many dead people got stimulus
How many
checks?
dead people? Right. How many dead people? Now, you talk about a presidential election. You can't get anything more important than that. A Senate race, Congress, The school boards are important too.
Mm-hmm.
But imagine that. You get that, you just cast it in. They're not checking that out.
No way.
They're not. Do you think they're going to say, wait a minute, that does not look like his signature?
Yeah. They're volunteers.
Right. They're just going to. So with an absentee ballot, again, you got to request it. So it's sent to the person who they know is registered, they know presumably alive, and you have to sign. There's more safeguards. So to say mail-in is the same as absentee, it is not. They only sent that because I was going to Florida and I wasn't going to be around. And that's when, as one of the times Zeldin won. It wasn't a presidential, but it was an important race.
Yeah.
So, because I remember for Trump, I was here. It was like right around that time because we always would go to Florida like the first week, and I was glad I was home when that happened so I could
It was
rejoice.
exciting, yeah.
But that's the ballots, and that's a problem. So they got to be careful about that.
Well, that's what they wanted. It's a problem.
Right, and they want to be able to.
Any way they can
stuff the ballot
manipulate,
box, yeah.
any way they can do to manipulate it,
Right.
they'll do it.
And look, let's be honest. A Republican can do that.
Right.
I'm not saying only the Democrats are going to do that. I think they're more known for that.
Yeah.
But I'm afraid that could taint it. And then also, we're relying on the United States Postal Service maybe more than any other election we've ever had. Yeah. Anyone ever tell you I didn't get it in the mail?
Right. Right.
It happens. And then when you mail it, there's certain rules with an absentee ballot by certain deadlines. With the mail, what if you mail it the night before election and then a week or two later? Do we want to wait until January to find out
Right.
who won the election? It's bad enough we had that debacle in Florida with the hanging chads. That was pretty bad. All right, I'm going to ask my producer to get Ed on the phone. Well, while we're waiting, and don't put him on right away, just let me know that you got him. I was reading an article, you probably read the same article. Up the Upper East Side, a lot of rich people live there. In fact, my daughter worked for a family there. She lived in a nice little apartment, but some of the most money in the city belongs to people on the Upper East Side, billionaires. I think armed robbery went up 238%, Frank. Do you know what that's like? And in a community, and I said this, if that goes, give me 1 second, if that goes violent, they're all in trouble. Because usually those people donate a lot of money to political causes. So they're probably saying, nothing bad's going to happen on the Upper East Side, the Upper West Side, maybe a few other communities. Keep the bad guys out of there.
Right.
Not that they want crime elsewhere, maybe de Blasio does, I don't know. But they don't care if it's in the poor communities because those people, they don't give any money to de Blasio or some of the others.
Right.
But when the Upper East Side goes that way, you know something's seriously wrong because are the cops looking the other way? What's going on that 238% increase in and we're not talking about someone stealing a loaf of bread. We're talking about armed robberies. That must scare the heck out of those people that live in those little enclaves that normally it's safe as anything. That's why they're getting out of there. I know for a fact a lot of families are leaving, going to Connecticut, New York.
Yep.
They're getting out of the city.
That's right.
Cuomo's begging them to come back because the whole tax base is going. That's going to get worse before it gets better. So I think, again, they look at things, because think about what they do. They write, they follow things. They're not creating anything. They're not in this, some of them are reporters. They get embedded with, like the Marines or something like that. But it just seems, and again, I don't know the exact answer. I'm just saying maybe they look at the world as, why are there wars? Why do people commit crime? People are human. People are frail. We're not computers. Why do people, and you have, so that's why I think sometimes the best presidents aren't necessarily the eggheads. Look at Carter, arguably one of our smarter presidents, right? Jimmy Carter, lousy president.
Lousy.
All right, and Nixon was a very Duke-educated lawyer. kind of screwed up. He wasn't a terrible president in a lot of respects. You know, he opened up with China, but he ended up a failure.
Yeah.
And then you have other presidents like George Bush, maybe wasn't known for his keen intellect. I'm not saying he was a dummy by any means, but wasn't known, let's say, for his keen intellect. He did a pretty good job, Bush.
Yeah.
You know? Now Lincoln was Lincoln had 6 months of education, but by all accounts, Lincoln was a very, very bright guy. But I think people that look at things realistically, like I consider myself a smart guy, not a genius, but I look at things and I try to look at it from the other side. Like, do I like war? No, but you know what? I'm mindful of the other guy.
Right.
The other guy wants war. So am I going to be like a pacifist? Like a really smart guy might be a pacifist, you know? I wouldn't start a war. No, but I'll finish it,
Right.
right? And why are the Ivy League professors like that? Why are most of them like a Harvard or Yale? They're so liberal, it's disgusting.
Yeah.
Now, I'm lucky when I went to Fordham, I didn't really see that. I could speak my mind. You know, I was a business major, so maybe if I took more philosophy classes, I might have seen that side. But your major was education,
Yeah.
right? So I don't know. Did you see when you went to school? You went to school after I did. Did you see that liberalism?
I didn't.
Where'd you go to college?
I went to Stony Brook.
Okay, and you know you have a big Asian population.
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't go to Stony Brook, so I don't know.
I
But,
didn't see it.
and you know what it is too? A lot of large classes. So maybe it's hard to indoctrinate. You're teaching a class of a couple of hundred. Maybe it's harder to indoctrinate
Yeah.
than if you have a class of
Yeah.
30 people. I don't know.
And I didn't live there. I was coming and going,
Mhm.
so.
Yeah, but my daughter went there, and you know what? I was amazed. Now I knew that it had a big Asian population. Again, nothing wrong with that. They, go to school like anybody else. And my daughter was a business major, so when I went to the graduation, which is a smaller part of the school, how many Asians there were in comparison? So I thought with business students it'd be a little less percentage, but it wasn't. But I think I represented a lot of students at Stony Brook, and I said, how come it's such a large population? Because in China and in parts of Asia, Stony Brook has an amazing, amazing reputation. And it's one of those schools in foreign countries that have such a, like if you had Oxford, you know what I mean? You've heard of Oxford, right? A
course.
great school, you know,
Yeah.
you're a Rhodes Scholar. So you'd go to Oxford, the word gets around that Stony Brook is a good, and they feel at home.
Right.
Because if you go there, you see a lot of other Asian students, so you feel at home. It's like, why did people live in like Little Italy if you're Italian? You feel more at home.
Right.
And you get a good education. Now, maybe they have to pay more because obviously you were a Suffolk County resident, so, but they come here and they do well, and some stay here, some don't. I represented, I got to say, about a dozen students over the last number of years, and they come here, they get a good education, some go back, some stay here, but
But the ones you represented weren't doing so hot.
they got into a few scrapes.
Yeah.
Few scrapes. Nothing,
Oh, wait,
nothing serious.
I'm a former student that you represented.
Oh. Okay. Are we going to get Ed back on or no? We're not going to be able to do that? Okay. So anyway, yeah, like when I went to Fordham, I remember debating a Jesuit priest in one of my classes. It was a liberal arts class. And we talked about the death penalty. And at the time, I was for it. I've done a 180. It's one of the few issues, I got to say, one of the few that if you looked at my position years ago, it's changed. And I laid out, we've talked about it.
Yeah.
I've laid out my reasons. And look, I have no, hey, if somebody killed a little kid, I'd have no problem ending that guy's life. But again, we don't live in a perfect system.
Right.
You know, we've talked about guys, you had on your show, my show, our show together, guys that were convicted that didn't do it.
Right.
And if they were put to death, that'd be a travesty of justice. But I had a debate with a Jesuit priest, and I was able to speak my mind. He disagreed with me, that was great. I said my piece, he said his piece. I wasn't chastised. It didn't affect my grade. If I remember correctly, I got an A in his class. But some students are afraid. You see them like they come on Fox News, they're like, well, we really can't. It's almost like a movie star in Hollywood that's young. He can't come out there and say, go Trump. He won't get any work.
I remember, that's right. I remember at Stony Brook, my sociology teacher. He was a black man, and I say that because it fits the story. And he was great. I didn't agree on him in a lot
Stony
of
Brook,
things.
you said.
Yeah, I didn't agree on him in a lot of things. He was liberal side, and a lot of students in the class. So after I catch him in the hallway, actually, start talking to him, and as we're talking, and And I told him, I thought he was great. And he says, Frank, do you think that the people that are running things want us to agree on things?
Divide and conquer.
Exactly. He says is that there's a reason that the phrase divide and conquer exists. That's what they do.
Oh, did I steal your thunder?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
thanks a lot. This guy does it. He always did it. He always did
I'm
it.
sorry, Frank.
Well, what else would happen? Like I would go mute or something as I'm trying to talk. Back in the day, they screwed me over all the time, him and Eric. Anyway, but yeah, he says that we're not supposed to agree. Even though we could get along, I got along with him, and he let you say your thing in the middle of class, and it was respectable. Like he was excellent, and yet a sharing of ideas. Oh, God forbid,
That's how it should be.
without attacking each other. And he said, he goes, they will never let us agree. They're gonna do something so that we can't agree. That's the plan.
And we have 4 or 5 minutes left. One thing I wanted to bring up, I did a post the other day, and I said, well, someone did a post saying, isn't it racist if you're eliminating like a gender or a race from consideration for VP? And I shared the post. I didn't create the post, but I shared it. And most people agreed with me. One person said, oh, you, having been a minority, me, my dad's from Puerto Rico, so I guess he called me a minority, even though I grew up in middle-class Smithtown. Yeah. But he said, being a minority, don't you have any morals? Don't you care about minorities? Had nothing to do with minorities. And I turned it around. I said, I said, this is what I did. I did this post. I said, if I ever run for president, Frank, I'm going to pick a white male as my VP. And then I said, I'm joking. I said, what stupid fool would eliminate half the population and limit it to one race? That's not to say you can't pick a black female, but to come out and say, I'm not even going to consider a male. I'm not going to consider her an Hispanic or an Asian or an Italian. Imagine saying that. Imagine, you'd be like, wait a minute, why would you do that?
Especially, like we said, a pretty important position. You want the best.
Especially with a 76-year-old guy who's losing his mind, or 78,
you want
whatever
the best. You want the best person for the job.
I think he's going to be 78. No, he's going to be 78 because he'll be 82 pretty much at the end of his term. I think he turned 78.
I thought he was older than that.
I think he turned 78 in November, November 20th or something like that. I think it's my sister's birthday, as a matter of fact. And he'll be 78, 9, 80. He'll be like 82 at the end of his. Now, again, Trump doesn't seem to be affected. Even if he says something off the cuff, I don't think there's any issue about his mental capacity. But when you get older, the expression, how he's having a senior moment, right? People get older, you get a little more forgetful. It's just the way it is. Doesn't mean you're not still a smart guy, and it affects people. Do you know that also? I heard a doctor saying that Biden takes medication for something with his heart. And one of the things it could lead to is mini strokes, what could affect a mini stroke. I'm not talking about a stroke where, it's obvious. Mm-hmm. And it said one of the things, and this doctor said it, so I'm not saying it, the doctor said it. It could be, sometimes, let's say when you see he loses focus, it could have been like a very, very small mini stroke that people have, because he has a condition that creates that, because he takes the medication.
And it does affect your memory.
And it said it affects that, or even like short term where you see him almost like zone out, or he forgets something or whatever. I don't think it makes you plagiarize, which he was kind of known for. But we got to wrap things up. Before that, I wrote a book called Divorce: A Practical Guide. It's a great read. It's a book, soup to nuts. It'll give you all the information you need before you go see an attorney. It's a good read before you see an attorney. It makes you an informed consumer. And Frank Vetro, I'm going to give you a chance to plug your book. You got about a minute.
All right. Book's called Standing on Principle. We'll play on words, PAL. I was a public school principal. I'm working in a private school right now. But basically, my identity was stolen. I was wrongfully arrested. Wound up living in my car for things I didn't do. I was portrayed as a terrorist on the news by the Suffolk County PD. And a few rogue officers. Well, I'm all for the cops, of course, but like every profession, there's a few that are no good. Fought my way back and wrote a book. It stems from what happened to me, but it goes to broader themes about immunity, the system, the media and how people are treated, not given a fair shake in the news. Go to my website, frankvetro.com, VETRO, frankvetro.com.
It's funny, when I used to promote the show, I used to get sometimes comments, and I would say, you know, watch Standing on Principle. We did FM radio. And they'd be like, you spelled it wrong.
Oh,
Isn't it principal? I said, no, it's like, he was a principal, and I had to go through the whole thing. He was like, oh, okay, now I got it.
Yeah.
I want to thank you for watching the show. Again, Finding Common Ground every Saturday at 10 a.m. on channel 115. You can also watch it on YouTube by going to my channel, Phil Jusino. It premieres at 10 o'clock on Saturdays, just like the regular show does. So if you don't have Altice, or if you are out of the area, you live somewhere off Long Island, you can still see the show, Phil Jusino.